answer sort of quickly. I just read something I liked, and it said that everybody's resumes are now becoming more or less standardized. You know that you have to have things in sequential order, blah, blah, blah. But the cover letter gives you an opportunity to really showcase what you've done and provide personality. So is that a risky thing, to try and project who you are, personality, in a cover letter and go out there? Or does that help cut through any of the clutter that you see with a pile of resumes? How would you advise people to invest their effort? Should they focus on personalizing and jazzing up the cover letter, staying honest throughout?
I can speak to that. I personally, we like seeing the creativity. I think Pearson prides itself on finding creative talent and talent that are really going to contribute. So we're not even looking so much for people that are going to come in and better our product. We're looking for someone that's going to be able to help create new products. So by demonstrating that creativity, it only sells yourself and sets you apart from the masses who haven't really gotten it yet, and that we're not looking for a generic answer. We recognize that each person's different. We recognize that each person's going to bring something different to the table, and we want to see it. And we want to see then how that's going to play into our organization and even the department. So we definitely gauge it, and I mean, in our positions, you think of departments and positions that we're hiring for. We know the type of candidate we're looking for, so through your cover letter, it's the quickest way for us to see whether or not it's a good cultural fit, it's a good boss fit, just by the cover letter alone and being honest.
Yeah, I don't think a cover letter has to do somersaults and you know, come in a colorful scented envelope or anything, you know, really like that. I do think that a strong cover letter should state who you are right up front and say something unique about yourself, and then, as I said, be honest, be brief, be you know, show us something about you that's very you, and let it go at that. I mean, I don't think you have to really, really push it too much, but don't be afraid to make a statement or characterize yourself or explain one of your best accomplishments or why this is really meeting your passion, and I think that goes a long way.
The cover letter can also be an opportunity to explain a transition that you're making, because in our college, lots of people had a career and are transitioning to something different. I know I did it, and for an employer to get a resume and see another career on there, that employer is going to say, okay, I'm not exactly sure I see how we're going from, I have a good example from the paralegal program. I have a student, an alum, who was a costume designer, becoming a paralegal. That's not the easiest connection to make, and she used the resume. It was a little tough. She had costume design experience on the resume. We talked about what kinds of things somebody might be interested in, but it wasn't a lot. But the cover letter was where she was able to talk about why she was making this transition, what she learned that helped her, how the education piece came in. She was able to get she got a great job with a large law firm, and she did it through an internship. So then she was able to have the internship experience and explain why she was making that transition. But it took a while. I mean, we worked together on that to talk about what that transition would play out for, because you can't expect the employer to make those connections. You need to be the one who's doing it for them.
Yes, Mr. Brown said, I just wanted to know, may I please give you my resume and cover letter to see if I fit a position at your place of work?
Yeah, sure. Yep. On the cover letter front, Winston Churchill said, I think it goes, short words are best, and old words, when short, are best of all. And for me, the thing which I notice on resumes, if you're honest and actually show your personality, it's a bit like dating. You don't want somebody who's going to start off with something super flashy, because it will put you off. On the other hand, you don't want boring. It's a question of hitting it at the right tone. And the big trip, which I see on cover letters, is, look, you know, time's brief. I hate, you know, saying multisyllabic business words rolled out one after the other. Simple statements like, I am good at, you know, writing. I like to do such and such. you'd be amazed how they cut through my initial business experience provisos were, you know, blah, 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 blah. Simple, straight, punchy sentences. I notice a direct correlation between brevity and seniority. Junior people tend to use much longer words, and they take a long time to get their words out. Some of the deans and CEOs I communicate with, it's not unusual for me to get back 3 words on an email. Yes, I will. No, not today. Just really nice, simple stuff, and it's great.
This is a question for anyone, but how have you, if you have, combat the experience question? Because a lot of times you'll see a posting for something and it'll say 3+ years, 4+ years, et cetera. And for me, at least, I just graduated from undergrad and now I'm in a master's program. Like, my experience is very limited to an internship and, you know, a few things here and there. So how have you personally, or have you seen someone during the hiring process combat that question? And you mentioned having a blog. If you have a blog, put that on there. Does that count towards some kind of experience? What are some items that you would add on if you haven't worked with a company and you don't have that kind of experience?
For me, at least, it's funny, I had an experience similar to Deb here. When I graduated my MBA program, I did have experience, but pretty much none in the industry I wanted to go into. And there was this company that I wanted to work for, and amazingly, I was working in retail, and the CEO of the company happened to jog. It was in Harvard Square. He jogged by the store, and he peered in the window. And I just couldn't believe it, because I recognized him from a panel he'd been on, and I thought, what the hell? So it was a small store, and I was the only one in, and I locked the door and ran after him. And he's now, 25 years later, he's now on my board. The reason I think I was able to do it with zero experience is that I got really, really clear that this was the company I really wanted to join. In the UK, when you apply to universities, you have to rank the order in which the universities you want are. So you have a choice. You can actually put a really big, you know, Oxford or Cambridge up top, and you know the worst colleges lower down. Or you can actually put the worst colleges lower down, higher up rather. So when a small college sees that you put it right up top, they say, I really want to work, or in that case, I really want to go to that college, you get a completely different feeling. And so I know that occasionally, the woman currently who is a junior editor, she pretty much said, I so want to work for your company. That was it. Like, she didn't have any experience. She graduated from Maryland with a library degree, an MLS. She'd you know, worked for Barnes & Noble, a couple of jobs like that. But her real thing was, I really want to work for your company. So when I probed, she'd used all the products. She had lots of ideas. She was really enthusiastic. And you know, there's a Pearson company here, which everybody wants to work for. And there's little companies like Alexander Street, which some people want to work for. And so when I see that, you know, that level of dedication and enthusiasm, but you can't do that with everybody. It's really heavy work. So and that's probably why it makes the difference. You know, I imagine it's that the same is true for all small companies. If you really care about it, it shows. And the very fact that you can't do it for tens of companies shows that you kind of put a lot of eggs in one basket.
And I mean, John, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in the government also, at least the experience that I've seen, and I don't know that it's necessarily true in your exact experience, the government takes a little bit of a holistic look at the kinds of experiences that you've had, and so you can be thinking, and companies do as well, but you know, what have you done? Combined with the skills that you're getting through school, that makes an impression. Job postings are the worst most demoralizing way to look for a job. They all say a certain number of years of experience, and you're applying, and you don't have quite that much, and the government's the same way. I mean, it's all the same. And I get so many people coming back and saying, well, there are all these postings say that it must be this much. Yeah, I know. They all say that. But this example that Stephen just gave, this happens all the time. People do informational interviewing and talk with people in an educated manner about things that excite them and make connections with people. Even in the government, excitement about the mission, excitement about the work. Now, yeah, they have to go through a process that they may not have to go through in the private sector, but I'm sure that you would agree there's still work to be done on a networking, making connections,
Definitely.
talking.
I mean, I would say, I mean, beyond, as you're saying, getting into that point where you get to an interview, once you're there, like, the reason I feel like I got the position I was into my agency was that I have actually used GPO's products. I'm interested in the mission. I think it's of tremendous public value and that it needs to continue, whether it's in print or it's, you know, on your mobile phone. I mean, the need is still there. So having that, you know, intense personal reason why you want to work there is great. In terms of putting your experience into your resume, I think from the federal perspective, if you have volunteering, you know, and you can make a case for saying, you know, I volunteered and I coordinated this and this, it still fits in that same sort of thing. I think you just have to be a little bit creative in looking at your experiences as a whole and saying, how can I make the case? That's what I'd say.
Any last questions?
I have a question. You mentioned a digital interview. I have no idea what that is. Could you explain exactly what happens during that?
Well, actually, you guys are using InterviewStream, and that was one of the companies we demoed with. We use HireVue, but similar to what you guys have available on your career page, where there'll be someone on the screen, there'll either be a verbal question or you'll actually have someone physically asking you a question. Gives you a couple seconds where you have an opportunity to think out your answer, and then you click record. And these can be done via a phone, mobile device, as well as iPads or computers. So given that most phones nowadays do have iPhones, they are accessible, and a lot of these online interview forums that we use are accessible via those multiple avenues. But you're asked a question, you're given a couple seconds to think about it, and then hopefully you're looking into your screen and not directly at your computer, because sometimes it is awkward on the other side where you're not making any type of eye contact with the person. But you're given a couple seconds, you answer your question. With some of the programs, you are able to review your answer before you hit submit. Other programs actually don't let you do that. So I would recommend taking the time to read through your answers as best as possible. But from there, the responses are sent to the recruiters, and then we're able to share them with hiring managers as well as other people on the team, depending on the type of position.
Are you guys using that as a step to replace like a traditional phone interview, which would possibly come first, or in addition to all of the traditional steps that a person would go through?
So it does typically depend on the position. So our first step in the application process is always submitting the application. Some of our positions do have questions that they'll ask you as qualifying questions before your application gets sent through. If you are qualifying and answering the qualifying questions correctly, from there the video interview typically does replace the first phone screen, but it doesn't replace the overall coming into the office for that face-to-face interaction.
Another good reason to do InterviewStream, because that will.
I recommend it.
I can't tell you how many times I make the paralegals. I teach in the paralegal program, and I make my students do it. It's an assignment for them, and they're looking everywhere. And it's funny to watch where they're looking. Now, I will tell them, okay, your eye contact was a little off. It's the first time they've done it, and they don't really know what they're doing. But if they were to go back, because I can't make them do it all the time, because I only have them in one class. If they were to go back and do it again, I bet you they'd be looking where they need to look, because they have seen where they looked the first time they did it, and it was crazy. So they now have the feedback, and that's a lot of it. You have to see. I had a client once, because I used to do this in the private sector, who always closed his eyes every time he answered a question. I think it was like this. I think he was thinking he looked like he was thinking, but it looked sick. And I told him, you got to figure this out. But I didn't have InterviewStream as a tool, so he didn't see it. I was just telling him. It's a great tool because you can see what you're doing and where your eyes are. And it's good. I actually think that it's harder than an in-person interview. I mean, I think it's much easier to connect with somebody when you're sitting with that person. So I think InterviewStream is really good for content and feeling relaxed, talking about yourself, and especially telling me about yourself. If you're going to be doing anything digitally, you really need to do it because that's a different experience.